Hello everybody, welcome to our last part of the project. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a scatter plot to show whether or not there's an association between two quantitative variables. So what you're asked to do is to organize your data from two quantitative variables into a list of paired values, determine or choose which variable will be explanatory and which will be response, then to create an appropriate graph to display the relationship between the two variables, calculate all relevant statistics that would occur in a computer printout and organize in that fashion, and then write a clear, concise report describing the association between the two variables. Use statistics to justify your findings. All right, so if I go back to my Excel document, this is where I left off with favorite food versus gender. Since I've already included all that in my last document, I'm going to go ahead and just delete these graphs. I don't need them anymore. If I were you, maybe not delete them since you might need them later on for your projects. But if you remember, we hid several of the columns. So if you just highlight the two columns around it and then right-click, you'll see an opportunity to unhide, and so I can actually unhide. And so if I'm looking at the different variables that I have here, the quantitative variables that I have, and that bin number is not actually a variable, so I can actually delete that. I've got the number of AP classes, I've got the number of siblings, and the number of pets. Those are my quantitative variables. So the only thing I might suspect that there is an association between the number of siblings and the number of pets. And my guess is if there are a lot of children in the household, there probably won't be as many pets. So I would think that perhaps a family that has a lot of kids would not also have a lot of pets, but I don't know. That's my suspicion. So that would mean that my explanatory variable would be the number of siblings and the response would be the number of pets. And I suspect that there would be a negative association here, but I don't know. Let's find out. So to create a scatter plot, I'm just going to go ahead and highlight just the data. And then I'm going to go to Insert, which I'm already there. And then you'll see there's actually a scatter plot option. And I'm going to choose the scatter plot. And look at that. Not very helpful. What I'm going to do, what I see is I have this big outlier here where I've got one student that apparently has 21 pets. I'm actually, because that is going to mess up my scatter plot so completely, I'm actually going to just hide, or I'm just going to hide that piece of data. And so I think that kind of gives me some data that I can look at a little bit more clearly. So this is what the scatter plot looks like. So you can see that there are some things missing. First of all, I don't really need this key, so I'm just going to click on it and delete. I do need to label my axes, and I think it would also help to maybe even change, like these all look funny to me because they're not circles. So if I click on any one of the data points and then right click on it, it'll say Format Data Series. And if I click on that, I can go to marker options, and if I go down to where it says built-in, I can actually change them to a circle. I'm sorry if my OCD rubs off on anybody, but that's just something that I find to be very annoying. You can even, if you wanted to, make them a different color. So if I go back into format data series, I can go to marker fill, solid fill, and then change it to like black if I wanted to make it like really obvious. Okay, and then again, we want to fix our title. So we've got, I think number of siblings is what I said was our explanatory. So number of siblings versus number of pets would be my title for my chart. And then I want to go ahead and label the x-axis. So if we go to layout, that's where all of your little menu items are. So if I want to go to axis titles, the horizontal axis I want to put below the axis, and this will be the number of siblings. And if I press enter, it should type that in. And then if I go to axis title vertical, I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to type in number of pets. And there we go. In terms of whether or not there's an association here, it doesn't really appear to be linear. I've definitely got this point over here that sort of where I have 3 siblings and then, excuse me, 4 pets that kind of makes it almost seem like a curved pattern. So, but it's kind of hard to tell. So if I wanted to, I can go under your layout options. You'll see where it says trend line. You could do a linear trend line if you want to try that. I think it's pretty clear that there's probably not an association here. In fact, if you go back to that trendline menu and go down to where it says more trendline options, you can actually have it display the equation and the r squared on the chart. So if I hit close, you can see that my r squared value is only 0.0039. So that's less than 1% of the variation in the number of pets can be explained by the number of siblings according to this regression equation. So a linear model is certainly not appropriate here. That's really as far as I need you to go on your project, but if you did seem to find like an association between the variables and you were curious about a model for it, you could go further. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this linear model. Let me just click on that and hit delete. You'll notice if you go back under the trend line, there are more trend line options, and you can even try like polynomial, logarithmic, there's exponential. I don't think this is exponential, but I could try polynomial, and again, you can display the equation on the chart, display the value of r, and that's sort of what it looks like. You can see the r squared value is slightly bigger. Now it's accounting for 18% of the variation in y. That's still not very strong. So in conclusion here, I would definitely give the equation for your least squares regression line and then just state that because the r squared value is so low, it's almost zero, in fact, that there really is no association, or at least not a linear association, between the number of siblings and the number of pets for the students in your class. In terms of the write-up, so in fact, if I went ahead and just clicked on the graph and went to the home copy and go back to the document that we've been working on, this would be part 5. And if, again, we'll want to do paste special and do a picture. And hopefully at some point, there we go, it's on the next page. So here's the picture if you did think it was maybe a nonlinear model, and notice the equations there. So is your r squared. If I wanted to go back to Excel, I could just use the back button. Oh, no, I couldn't. Let's try this again. If I wanted to do linear model, I'll do linear. I want to display. And then you can just kind of move it so it's a little bit easier to see. So, and I would just copy. And again, you do want to make sure when you're pasting it that you paste it as a picture. Otherwise, any changes you make are going to be affected, are going to affect your Word document as well. So like I said, you can just do one regression equation and then determine whether or not there's an association between your variables. You just want to be able to justify it. So you can justify it several ways. You can certainly justify just looking at the scatter plot and seeing that there's not an association, that it's very weak, that it appears to be nonlinear. When you do linear regression, you're given the r squared value, and so then again, to determine the r value, you would take the square root of that. Because there appears to be a negative slope, you'd want to make sure that you made it negative r, and that would also be another way that you could justify whether or not this was appropriate. So those are the 3 different graphs that you'll be producing for your project. Like I said, I do expect them to be done digitally, and then I expect you to have a nice complete paragraph. If you feel more comfortable labeling, part 3, whoops, and then writing your paragraph, make sure that you have an introduction. In fact, I would encourage you to kind of restate everything that you've already done in parts 1 and 2 so that it's all very clear, and so I'm not just jumping into part 3 and wondering what your study is all about. So I would like you to go ahead and include in your document a description of your population, the variables, and then obviously you do need to include your data table. So if you've hidden any of the columns, you'll want to make sure that you unhide them. So I'm going to need to unhide that student. And it didn't unhide. Let's see. There we go. So you want to make sure you unhide anybody that you hid for your data. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions over break on how to do any of these, feel free to give me send me an email. If you have a different version of Excel, just go to YouTube and type in like how to create a scatter plot, how to create a bar graph, how to create a histogram. The videos are very helpful. In fact, that's how I figured out how to do the histogram, since it wasn't straightforward. But again, you can email me if you have any questions. Good luck. Have a great Thanksgiving.